Before I jump straight into how we can actually cut down the luxury in government, it is worthy of note that in 2019, President Buhari approved about 37 billion naira for the National Assembly complex renovation. Now, in 2021, the Federal Capital Development Authority, the FCDA, also approved about 30 billion for the same renovation. And very recently, I think via the supplementary budget, about 70 billion has also been allocated for the same project. And it begs the question, this particular complex that they keep renovating, how strong is this particular structure, and why does it need to be renovated constantly? Or is this just another way to put money in their pockets? Not to mention also at the state level, how governors are having a lot of aids and just sort of making the cost of governance way more expensive. Considering the fact that we live in times where the government truly needs to cut down their expenses, considering the increase in the cost of goods and services as a result of the fuel subsidy removal and other factors. Well, to analyze this particular situation in the studio, I have with me Wale Oshunde, a lawyer and a public affairs analyst. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
It's good to see you again.
I think you've really done my job. You've made it very easy for me. I love your intro.
Oh, thank you very much. So let's get straight into it. First of all, before we start talking about this current government, what has been the track record of the previous government when it comes to curbing down expenses?
Of course, they've not even curbed anything. So they've just been spending the money. That's exactly what they've been doing. I mean, thinking about the humongous amounts that, have been sunk into renovation projects and what have you. You hear all sort of stories, the cliches, we have rodents at a time, that were eating the furniture in the State House, right? And then there was one other time that they said that there was this allegation of wiretapping and what have you at the National Assembly. Then again, some other people came around to say that, oh, look, there were damaged chairs, and so honorable members and distinguished senators, of course, could not even sit to carry out the functions of lawmaking. So you hear all these stories, and then you're like, look, so do we do this every year? And can't we kill these rodents once and for all? So when you hear things like that, it begs the question, are we really sincere about cutting the cost of governance in this country? And look, this does not happen at the national level alone. If you go to the various states that we have, 36 of them, you find out, and of course the FCT, so you find out that this is exactly the same story. In fact, sometimes you just see some dilapidated buildings, and then they go with the cameras and what have you to show all of these things, only for you to then later hear that, they've earmarked about 10 billion, 20 billion. It's always in billions, and so nobody has ever mentioned to us that, look, they would spend just 20 million naira to carry out some little renovation works and what have you. And
sorry,
really
that leads me to my follow-up question. These projects, like you said, are in billions. Are you suggesting that there's always an issue of budget padding?
Of course. I mean, look, you see, the truth is one should not shy away from the reality of the fact that we need to renovate our structures. Even in our various homes, we carry out renovation works here and there. This switch is not working, that fan is not working well, and then we change them from time to time. But I mean, think about how much we spend to renovate our private residences, our private apartments, and then think about the billions that are, flashed in our faces, right, to renovate public facilities. It is really unacceptable. And that's exactly why, and one critical question that you must ask yourself is that these leaders, can they spend this same amount of money that they, spend on public infrastructure, on their private residences, on their private properties? It's never going to be the same. And why are they then appropriating and indeed spending these humongous amounts on, renovation of public infrastructure? And look, the truth is they don't actually spend those exact amounts. That's the truth. So some people are definitely padding something somewhere, or some people are basically stealing the money somewhere and somehow. Simple. And we need to look, this is an opportunity for we, the people, to actually hold government officials to account in this country. And until we do that, we'll be joking. And that's exactly why some of us have gone to town for donkey years now, calling on our brothers and sisters never to collect monies during electioneering process from politicians. Because the truth is, when you collect that 500 naira, you collect that 1,000 naira, or you even collect that 5,000 naira or 10,000 naira, the truth is for the next 4 years, your life is basically holding up. And nobody is going to be accountable to you, because they would actually come back to you to say, look, you collected your rights, during the elections. And so until we stop that behavior, and we probably talk to our brothers and sisters, because look, these are human beings doing all of these things. They are the ones collecting these monies, not spirits, right? Not mythical beings, right? So we should go and talk to them from constituency to constituency to let our brothers and sisters know that until we stop these habits of shame, and charade, public officials and politicians alike would continue to fool us around, and we would not have any right to question them in any manner whatsoever.
All right. I would want to talk about how this has affected our revenue. Last week on the show, we spoke about how Nigeria is so much in debt and how 90% of our revenue is used for debt servicing as opposed to being used for infrastructural projects. How do you think it's affecting the cost of governance and how monies are being spent? How do you think it's affecting our revenue as a nation?
So the first thing I would like to say about that is that, look, we would not blame that on this current government. I'm not their spokesperson, but we have to be very honest with ourselves, right? So all these debts are piled up before they even assumed office. One is only thinking and hoping and praying that President Tinubu and his officers or officials, right, or his ministers, and public officers alike, or his appointees, would be able to get it right this time around and ensure that they probably wind down on the cost of, debt servicing and all these monies that we're borrowing. In previous years or previous administrations, one would see that it's completely unacceptable. I'm telling you, a situation where we just go to the National Assembly and then it feels like we had the rubber stamp National Assembly at the time. They just go there with some proposals. We want to borrow money, $30 billion, this billion naira, this, and then they just stamp it and then they go collect the money. At the end of the day, no explanation whatsoever. But look, even when they explain or they try to explain, it does not take away the fact that you and I, even our children, and then those unborn are definitely going to bear the brunt at the end of the day.
Now, don't you think it's probably going to be the same situation in this government? Because as you know, the president and of course the Senate president, they are from the same party, which was the case in the previous administration because Senator Ahmed Lawan was also from the same party as President Muhammadu Buhari. You cannot take away the influence of President Tinubu on making sure that Senator Godswill Akpabio becomes Senate president. Don't you think it might just be the same situation?
Well, we can only hope. That's the honest truth. We can only hope that it is not exactly the same. And maybe this is another opportunity for all of us to call on all of them, to at least do what is right for once. This is an opportunity for them to right all the wrongs and to write their names in the book of history in this country. They can actually make a difference. It is very easy to do. It takes commitment, it takes dedication, and it takes forthrightness. They must be determined. If what the president has been saying is anything to go by, it sounds like someone who is serious about governance, but whether it would be able to really cut down the cost of governance is another thing entirely. But let's give him a chance. I think we are still in the early days. We should give him a chance and opportunity, but we should continue as citizens to reiterate the fact that he's made certain commitments, to the Nigerian people, and he must deliver on, these critical commitments because our lives depend on these commitments, and we are definitely going to hold him to account at the end of the day.
So, if we're going to cut down governance, the cost of governance, I think the signs should be clear from the beginning. As you can see, the president has appointed a list of ministers, and I'm sure there are the list of appointees that other executive officers and even non-executive officers have actually appointed. And as we can see, I don't think there's any change in terms of the staffing, the number of staffing. If there's anything, in some quarters it has actually increased. Is that not an indication that perhaps this government is not actually committed to cutting down costs?
Good. And I'll be very honest with you. Look, during the electioneering campaigns, I knew that the president was going to have this massive problem. In fact, if I will be honest with you, and that is not to say that I'm a card-carrying member of any political party at this time, right? I thought that the only person who probably would have been able to appoint a very few number of ministers would have been Peter Obi. Because if you look at the politicians, looking around the three major contenders, during the electioneering process, you see that he had, less number of politicians flocking and locking around him at the time, who would definitely expect some political compensation. If you look at the APC, you would see that a lot of people, in fact, former governors, former ministers, former senators, current senators, and all that at the time were all supporting now President Bola Tinubu, and they were all going everywhere with him. Those people definitely will be expecting to be compensated at the end of the day. Let's not deceive ourselves. In fact, I believe that the president found himself in a very difficult situation, appointing some people that he has already appointed. And if you look very critically, you see that some people are probably still expecting to be appointed into the government because they made certain sacrifices during the electioneering. And, some of them even stepped down. And people have been asking questions. So you definitely want to ask about former governor of Lagos State, Fashola, former governor of Ekiti State, Fayemi, former governor of Ogun State, Ibikule Amosu, even El Rufai. There are a lot of people, who are still probably waiting in the flanks.
So, but should that be the case? Should our governments be used as compensation tools to the people that helped a candidate get into power?
It shouldn't be. But the truth is, the reality of our climb, has shown us that this is what happens year after year, or, every 4 years. You see, the truth is, people just believe that, look, let me support this candidate, give in my all, spend my money, do everything, campaign canvas, and then at the end of the day, at least I should have a say in the government. It really shouldn't be like that, but, this is Nigeria, and this is exactly what we have been doing over the years, right? So, and also, just as I was saying, if you allow me, look at the PDP as well. If Alhaji Atiku Abubakar had won the election, he would have also had to deal with this because a lot of people were around him, supporting him, campaigning for him and canvassing for votes for him, spending their monies, hoping that they would also have, an opportunity in government. So it would have also had that same problem, you see. But the only person, like I said, that I thought would probably have little problem in this regard would have been Obi, because if you look at the number of politicians locking and flocking around him at the time, known faces, right? They were very few in number. And then he would have probably had the opportunity to look outside of the box and look probably outside, of politicking and, political parties to appoint some people that would, help him, get the gains of government and governance to the people. So, but that has not happened. That is not to say that some of the people that have been appointed now are probably not good people or they are not fit for the job. But definitely what we must do as Nigerians is to definitely hold them to account and continue to demand for accountability, good governance, and the dividends of democracy. The reasons why we have actually put them in offices in the first place. We must continue to ask for all of these things. And then until we get to the promised land, we must not stop.
So, the executive arm of government is supposed to be checkmated by the legislative arm of the government. However, it seems like, just like you stated, they are all working together and they all come to terms in terms of an agreement, and they all turn a blind eye to these excesses. So since we know that checkmating is not working, do we have bodies, peer pressure groups that are actually making an impact in this regard in terms of demanding accountability, demanding good governance, and how effective are those groups?
So to be honest, Iro, I would not say that the legislature is not working. They're working, and they have a constitutional duty to perform. Until we change the provisions of our constitution, there is really nothing that anybody can do about the fact that the legislative powers of this country, lawmaking, I would say job, rests and abides with the National Assembly. What I think is missing is proper accountability and the fact that the Nigerian people have not, held their representatives and their senators to account in this country.
So do we have a provision? Because I'm aware, but I stand to be corrected, that there's a provision where even the people can recall House of Assembly members back.
Absolutely.
Are people aware that using that power, they're able to hold their leaders accountable?
So maybe that is also something we need to pay attention to at this point. Sensitization of our people, the awareness, that these rights do exist. People have been saying for years, but we've only been saying these things, that the highest office in the land is the office of the citizen. And we must definitely then start to propagate some of this gospel. That's the truth. We should know, or we should let our people know that, look, if a representative is not doing well, you can actually recall that representative. If a senator is not doing well, you can recall that senator. And look, even if an executive person, say for instance, a governor, a president, or even a chairman of the local government is not performing as expected, the truth is the people can actually cry out and ask representatives who should carry out the legislative functions of the country to rise to the occasion and then question or query such a person. There are these provisions in the law, but the unfortunate truth is that people have not been keying into the provisions of the Constitution or the laws that we have in this country. Until we then begin to make these demands, you see, we will just continue to talk. Nigeria will continue to be like this. Every 4 years, we appoint or elect new set of leaders. They do the same thing, and then we go nowhere. But we have no business being where we are at this point in time. This country is blessed, powerfully blessed, massively blessed. But you see, people who are abroad, who are out there, even know that we are blessed than we even know it. So maybe to your point, the truth is we then need to rise to the occasion, start to sensitize our people, talk to them from time to time, maybe even take these campaigns to our various wards, constituencies, local governments, and what have you, because our people must really know that they have this right.
Speaking of wards and local governments, it seems like we've been concentrating on just the federal governments, but this issue is also predominant with our state governments, and particularly the local government. I want to talk about autonomy. Our local governments truly autonomous?
They are not. And that is really sad and unfortunate. Look, and it is simply because of lack of political will. The governors or the states have basically hijacked the functions, the powers, the functionality of the local governments. We have to tell ourselves the truth, because we are not going anywhere until we tell ourselves the truth. There is no local, I'm yet to see any local government in this country that is functional. I traveled somewhere 2 weeks ago, and the road that leads right to the local government office is completely bad. In fact, I got to a point, and then it has completely cut into two. Can you imagine that? And I was just asking people, look, are you saying that the local government chairman here travels through this road, or he passes this particular portion of the road to the local government secretariat every day and he has not done anything about it? But guess what they told me? Look, this local government chairman does not even have resources to furnish his office. It does not even have file cabinets. And I was asking why. He said the state has basically cornered all the funds that should go to the local government. I stand to be corrected today. There is really no local government in this country. What we have is the fact that the Constitution has simply made provisions for the establishment and running of local governments, 774 of them, but I kid you not, they are not functional. So year on year, they have become tools in the hands of the governors to actually perpetuate themselves in office. Pure and simple.
Okay. In my opening monologue, I talked about renovation and how monies are being allocated almost every dispensation for renovations. Why always renovations? Why?
So I think I have an idea. Look, from what we can see in the country, one can see that the only way, or one critical way for politicians to actually make a lot of money is for them to embark on white elephant projects. It's either you are seeing a politician constructing one bridge or one dam, or they are renovating this structure or that structure, or they are erecting some big, structures somewhere, or they want to construct a very long stretch of road and what have you. Now, don't get it wrong. It is not to say that they should not construct roads, or that we should not build bridges, or that we should not furnish our schools or what have you and what have you. But we have seen that that is one channel through which they funnel money. So they go and connive with those contractors at the end of the day, and then they get kickbacks for whatever humongous amounts they must have probably signed out for them to do these construction works. So one thing that we really need to do in this country is what I call public scrutiny. We have to hold our political appointees and our leaders accountable, to every single kobo that they spend. Now, why don't we have a structure and arrangement where a governor comes around maybe once every year to say, yes, we have awarded this project, that project, this project, that project. This is how much it would cost to build this road, 10 per kilometer. It will cost so amount. If you go around today, and that was the time I was doing a study on how much it costs, to construct roads in this country. You'll be shocked to hear that the amounts differ from state to state. Isn't that interesting? I mean, if in Lagos State, for instance, it will cost, I'm just saying, 1 naira to construct 1 kilometer of road, and in Ogun State, a neighboring state, it will cost 2 naira to construct that same 1 kilometer of road. Don't you think there is a problem with that? Because they are using the same set of materials to construct this road. And you are probably using the same contractor to do this work. So why is it different? Why should it be different? And please go and compare how much we build roads and bridges in this country to how much they build in Ghana and convert it back to Nigerian naira. You'll be alarmed. So all of these things should not just be taken lightly by the Nigerian people. And until we wake up, we demand justice, we demand for equity, we demand for accountability in government. We'll be joking, we'll be deceiving ourselves. And guess what? These politicians are not interested in all the rantings and what have you. They're interested in the next election. And as we speak, people are already calculating, machinating, and strategizing for the next election. And we are here as Nigerians just looking on, and then we're not doing anything, we're not demanding anything. And this same set of people will come back again next year, or in 3 years' time, to say, re-elect us, and we collect 5,000 naira, collect 10,000 naira, and then we go on again, cast our ballots for them, or they probably snatch the ballot boxes, and nobody's saying anything. And then they continue to perpetuate themselves and their children in offices. I think the time has come for Nigerians to be honest with themselves and for them to do the right thing. What is the right thing? Very simple. Can we hold our leaders to account in this country? Look, we must continue to call on God. I'm also a child of God in my own way, right? But I think that we should do more of action than talking in this country. We talk a lot, we pray a lot, we do all sorts of things, but we never action those points that we call on God to do for us. And God will not come down to come and take charge of our affairs for us. He has given us brains. He has given us wonderful people, enlightened people, educated people in this country. All we need to do is to congregate at that juncture where we tell ourselves core truths, and then we match our words with absolute action.
All right, Wale, we've spoken at length about this particular issue. We've shed light on the issue of renovations constantly as a way that the government siphons money. I don't know if we have time to even go down to the civil service and the issue of ghost workers, the issue of fleet of cars. I don't know why every government official requires a very long fleet of cars. What do you think we can do about that? I mean, this program is also a platform for the government to truly hear what the people are feeling. So what do you think? Should we perhaps collaborate with our indigenous car makers to add that to the official convoy of the government officials? Do we cut down the number of vehicles? What is your take on this constant monies being spent on importing brand new vehicles?
Look, I don't have a problem with importation of vehicles, I'll be honest with you, or whatever look, all these things that we're saying about local manufacturing and all these things and all that, we'll be deceiving ourselves if we don't address the foundational problem that we have in the country. The foundational problem is that our politicians are really not, some of them, not all of them, some of them are not conscientious enough, period. Why do you need 10 vehicles? Why? I mean, let me give you a very simple instance. Some people some former governors are now ministers. And when they were governors, vehicles were bought for them, right? And when they were leaving offices, some of them went with these vehicles.
Exactly. That was the next point I was about to get.
Oh, good. So some of them left with these vehicles. And now you have been appointed to be a minister in the government. And they are buying 5 or whatever number of new vehicles for you again. So what happened to the previous ones that you were using as governor? You yourself can actually tell maybe the president or whoever is going to buy those vehicles to you, for you to say, I don't need these vehicles because I still have my own vehicles. Some people have 30 vehicles in their houses, and they are not even using these vehicles, and you still want to amass more, with the money of the public. And that's maybe why I like what the former governor of Ogun State did, when he became a senator of the Federal Republic. He wrote to the governor of the state to say, stop the pension and, the money that you pay to me every year from Ogun State, because now I'm serving as a senator of the Federal Republic and I'm earning public money. We should continue to encourage things like that. And look, This is not to say that some other people have
We're
not
out
done
of
so.
time now, Wale. Thank you so very much. And we'd
you.
like to have you some other time.